Do you feel like you're going crazy? That everything is frenzied, extreme, accelerated? There's a creeping dread in our world. It doesn't always look like the oppressive and ominous Yarnum, though it can. While the idea of the traditional monotheistic God seems less likely with each turn of a page of a book of world history, I can't shake the feeling that something beyond my understanding sets the guide rails. Society is mad. Existence is mad, cruel, and senseless in a way that seems intelligent in the same way as a cunning predator, yet beautiful and synchronistic in ways that defy the imagination. The madness of this place can cut into you, bore into your senses until the world seems sane in comparison to the plane of your own thoughts. Madness is terrifying. So much of our existence has been dedicated to curbing chaos and pushing madness into dark corners, and yet, when it unfolds right in front of us, we can hardly look away. It's hard to imagine this blood-soaked nightmare was a city where children played, people ate, worked, slept, and prayed. It's hard to imagine something so removed from the hanging bodies and blood-crazed monsters. It's hard to imagine it here, too. In much the same way, it's hard to imagine these paranoia-addled lunatics as regular people, but we've learned over the years that relatively unassuming-looking individuals can harbor bottomless insanity. In Bloodborne, we find the item Madman's Knowledge in the most unlikely of places. Places where only a lunatic would ever go to begin with. Of course, you were there to find it. And what does a madman's knowledge grant you? Insight. In our world, the phrases madness and insanity invoke fear. In the same way that the concept of chaos invokes fear, they go hand in hand, either fear of unpredictable behavior and motives we don't understand, or fear of the loss of our own mind and faculties. But madness among the civilized world is complex. Madness walks hand in hand with innovation and genius. There's an invisible scale that we gauge madness against. How valuable or interesting that madness is against how dangerous it is. Things become extra complicated when people occupy this section of the graph. We love the outrageous, the extreme, the notorious, at least the enjoyable and monetizable ones. We love them so much that we have an entirely different standard for what ends can be allowed to justify their means. A different set of rules for those that demonstrate the value of their particular brand of lunacy. We love the uniquely strange, worship them, those who are willing to dare to stand out, those who are mad enough to push against the status quo while still appealing to our sensibilities of what we like, still appealing to our vision of who we could imagine ourselves to be. Oh, the things people would do to appease what they worship. But what led to this need for extremes? What brought us to a knife's edge when we could easily choose safety? It would be easy to say that people who make this decision are manipulated, that the hysteria of groupthink is wholly responsible for the often logically devoid and senselessly cruel, or that necessity manipulated people's ability to think for themselves. Desperation drove them to insanity. But what if they were just bored? Impatient? Curious? In Yarnum and the surrounding locales, there's a name whispered in reverence and in warning. Lawrence. Once a student of Bergenworth, once a man who, like so many visionaries, dared to stand on the threshold of the unknown and demand more, faster. Lawrence wasn't satisfied with careful study. He wasn't satisfied with caution. He looked upon the ancient blood, and he saw opportunity. He founded the Healing Church, promising salvation and transcendence from the blood. And the citizenry of Yarnum, happy to break from the quiet desperation of township, curious, perhaps simply bored, of the limits of the hand that they were dealt. They drank of the blood, and briefly, they were saved. They were cured. They were powerful. All too briefly, before the transformations began. In the Bible, the concept of original sin is told by the story of Adam and Eve. We all know any number of versions of the story. The first woman led astray by the devil, the first man led astray by the first woman. In this story, curiosity is the ultimate undoing of man and the source of their eternal suffering. All to know between good and evil, to feel its difference through eternal rebirth. It seems a harsh punishment for the simple temptation of knowledge, no? To be eternally damned for only trying to understand what God understands. But what if it wasn't a punishment at all? What if this is merely the result? What if all of this, a sea of lifetimes where men toil in labor and women suffer in childcare, is the natural echo of mortals looking through the eyes of something beyond our scope? That's the kind of ambition that drove Lawrence. He wanted to taste godhood, the forbidden fruit. But the thirst didn't begin with Lawrence. It started in Bergenworth, a quiet institution by a still lake, where men peered into the abyss of the tombs beneath their feet and saw a reflection of themselves, larger. They unearthed blood, sure, but they also unearthed ideas. Not the ambition to rule, but the ambition to know. And while the church sought power in blood, Bergenworth sought the truth in eyes. They believed the mind, not the body, was the path to ascension. To them, madness was not the enemy. It was a threshold, a necessary cracking of the shell to let in something greater, more eyes, more insight, more being. And in that search, they too fell. Because what waited at the end of infinite knowledge was not clarity. It was contact. Bergenworth's descent into madness wasn't quick, like what took place with the Beast Plague. It was not the result of simple greed or error. It was a consequence of reaching too far. And of those consequences, Rom was born, or perhaps made. A student of Bergenworth, twisted, mutated, elevated, a human mind expanded beyond what a human vessel could sustain. Rom became a stopgap, a seal, a veil cast over the world to block out the truth that couldn't be properly comprehended. She's not your enemy in the traditional sense. She doesn't attack you until you do. She doesn't hate you or prey on you. She's protecting you in everything, the very fabric of reality. Perhaps she remembers what she used to be, the simplistic joy of life before it reached too far and saw too much, and the only thing left of what it was the desire to prevent this from ever happening to someone else. And so the veil was cast over the world, and the grand truth was hidden away. Master Willem, its teacher, its architect, sits by the lake it guards, silent, sickly, deteriorating not from the beast plague, but from something far deeper, the weight of knowledge that he can't carry. When he points to the lake, it's not guidance, it's resignation. He's seen the look in your eye before. He knows there's no point in trying to reason with you, no use in telling you not to look. He's simply saying, if you must see, then look. Rom saw and became the veil, like a child closing her eyes so they can't see what they've done. And once you tear it away, there is no going back. The red moon rises. You see the amygdala, and yet know they were always there. And the world you thought you knew twists into nightmare.
How long has the business is built on them? You just think we're alive. They're everywhere. Everything we're supplies.
We are nothing. Have you ever heard of phase polyphenism? I just recently learned about this myself. It's the process where a grasshopper becomes a locust. I always believed the locust to be an independent species, but what actually happens is when a grasshopper is in close proximity to a certain number of grasshoppers, they exhibit behavioral and physical changes where they become a locust. I'm talking color changes and a complete 180 of their behavior. Now, you could easily relate this to the idea of mob mentality. It could reasonably be posited that there are behavioral changes that take place in most animals when they're operating in a group versus independently. People that I imagine would seem normal under different circumstances can also be Eagles fans. Without the influence of groupthink, perhaps the writing on the wall for the Healing Church would have been easier to read. But that's not the only circumstance these changes can occur under. It's well known that parenthood triggers physical, hormonal, and even genetic changes in a woman's body, but did you know that there are physical and hormonal changes in the father as well? There are substances, both natural and man-made, that can annihilate human structure, rip apart our DNA. Is it difficult to conceive that there are other, more obscure circumstances, less understood happenings, that can trigger other changes? Maybe even things you could learn. Hidden pieces of knowledge. Things that once learned can't be unlearned. Boxes that once opened can't be closed. The world is suffering from something that has never been suffered from. We have too many eyes. We are connected to a degree that we've never been before, in a way that we haven't adapted to fully, a way that it's possible we just aren't built to tolerate. This same connection has also driven us apart from each other. Through our problem-focused animal brain, we developed in a way that ostracized behavior we found jeopardized our safety. We separated ourselves from what violated the social contract, but now everything is a danger. We've created a constant, thrumming network of anxieties and fears, like a prairie dog mound that oversees too much territory, and threats that are millions of miles away are processed through the same lens as problems 10 feet from your door. Complex social issues have been boiled into black versus white, and the bad guy can now be anyone. Your neighbor, a guy at a store, a cop, your mechanic. Everyone is shady. Everyone is a liar. Everyone has bodies in their basement and is coming after your hard-earned life. Everyone is the enemy. And in this, we seek to surround ourselves only with people we can fully understand and trust, people we can easily see ourselves in, blurry reflections, familiar energies. If we don't understand, we can't tolerate, because we can't guarantee our safety. We've seen the monsters, and now they're everywhere. Our echo chambers are not unlike the Grand Cathedral, where only familiar doctrine is allowed to echo back. We believe we're safer this way, but the citizens of Yarnum believed that too. They thought blood would unify them, strengthen them. But it didn't heal or empower them, it mirrored them, amplified them, until all that remained was frenzy and the echo of their worst selves. In Bloodborne, the more insight you gain, the more horrifying the world becomes. What was once unseen becomes visible, not because it entered the world, but because it was always there. Insight doesn't invent truth, it just reveals it. But information without the wisdom to process it is just exposure. And the truth may be that we were never meant to see this much. Information is infinite, comprehension is rarer, connection is immediate, intimacy is rare, ambition is encouraged, wisdom is optional. And in the unending march of progress, we often forget that not every question needs an answer. Not every secret demands uncovering. Not every boundary must be pushed. Some doors don't lead forward. They lead down. More blood, more eyes, more transcendence ended not in godhood, but in monstrosity. Not in salvation, but in screams behind chapel walls. And in our world, the echoes of that same ambition are already with us in collapsing ecosystems, in exploitative technology, in systems designed to devour rather than uplift. We have built atom bombs in the name of peace, sacrificed human lives in the name of profits. Maybe we didn't become this way because we were lied to. Maybe we were bored. And the internet, the progress, the capability it gave us, blood. This isn't a call to stagnation. It's a call to discernment. There's a difference between reaching for the stars and tearing a hole in the sky. Lawrence looked into the blood and saw salvation. Willem looked into the lake and saw the cost. Perhaps the question isn't can we open the door, but whether we're ready for what steps through when we do. Because some knowledge, like some blood, once touched, cannot be forgotten. Some insight is a curse. Perhaps there are doors best left closed.